Let me play his soundbite, and then you tell me what's really going on here with George Gascon, SOT 40.
A very careful review of all the arguments that were made for people on both sides of this equation. I came to a place where I believe that under the law, resentencing is appropriate, and I am going to recommend that to a court tomorrow. I believe that they have paid their debt to society, and the system provides a vehicle for their case to be reviewed by a parole board, and if the parole concurs with my assessment, and it will be their decision, they will be released accordingly. We're very sure not only that the brothers have rehabilitated and that they will be safe to be reintegrated in our society, but that they have paid their dues.
All right, so what's really happening? What's going to happen? Let's just start there. What is going to happen now?
Because there's been a lot of, I don't want to say misreporting, but part of why I had invited the district attorney to initiate the resentencing months and months ago is there are some legal quirks, one of which is if the DA initiates it, which they have now done. After that press conference, they went over and they filed the request for resentencing. Now that triggers the ability for us to request a hearing with the judge, which we will do in short order. That judge now has the ability to resentence them. And the judge is not bound by the DA recommendation. So the judge has the ability to recall the sentence and start afresh. They are in a legal zone where the judge can do, and I believe should do, and we will urge him to recall the murder, sentence them to a manslaughter, and release them immediately.
And could it be, Mark, that you will go to that hearing and then they will walk out free men?
It could be, yes. And I've said from the get-go, I wanted them over here for Thanksgiving. I'd bring them over for Thanksgiving. I mean, that's my goal. And so if I get the hearing, or we get the hearing set in front of Judge Ryan within a short period of time, the one thing that is uncontested and unrebutted, they have these, I referred to before, the C file. The C file is 35 years, 34 years of, maybe closer to 30, of their history in the prison system. Then the resentencing deputies said yesterday, and I think the DA conceded this and actually said it, they have some of the most impressive work in prison. And it's even more impressive when you consider the fact that for the last almost 20 years, they had absolutely no hope of ever getting out. They took the position to mentor others. We're going to help create this green space environment down there at the prison. It's beyond impressive.
So it seems like most of the family members, who are in a tricky spot, obviously, given the nature of this crime, are in support of the boys being released, the men being released now, they're men. But I did see an attorney for Kitty Menendez's brother on CNN this morning, and she was saying that Kitty Menendez's brother has objections to this. Here it is in SOT 41.
Mr. Anderson doesn't believe that those allegations actually, that he believes they're allegations, that it didn't actually occur. And based on what he saw during the trial, he thinks that essentially that was made up evidence by the Menendez brothers' attorney.
There is this letter that has emerged as a part of the renewed scrutiny on this case that indicates that there might have been some abuse. Does that potentially become a game changer in all of this if it can be further established?
Well, I suppose it might, but that's also, it's so theoretical, right? And the problem with this letter is that we don't exactly know when it was written. It may have been written by one of the brothers, but we don't know when it was written. The problem with Mr. Gascon is that he's had this case for 17 months, and it's only 11 days before the election where he's trailing by 30 points, and he knows he's going to lose. So he can get free publicity by holding press conferences. And we certainly hope that that's not what his motivation was.
Interesting point there at the end, Mark.
Yeah, I know. I've known Katie for 30 years. The one thing that if the CNN person was going to do a fair interview might have asked her is, by the way, are you listed on the opponent for George Gascon's website as endorsing him? So talking about political, and out of the 250,000 lawyers in California, how is it that they found one of the 20 lawyers who's an ex-disgruntled deputy DA who as the lawyer? By the way, why didn't your client, Milton Anderson, why did he turn down the invitation to go talk to the DA's office? And by the way, why does your older sister, Joan, why did she say that you, in fact, your client, Kathy Katie Milton, is an abuser? And why is it that 24 of all of the other family members have all uniformly come out in support? And I was a witness, and I hate to peddle in this, but I sat in the meeting with the 20 some odd family members who met with the DA's office, not yesterday, but well before. And the DA could not get them to stop talking about the abuse that Milton, Kathy Katie's client, had heaped on other family members. It's an awful situation, but not something that you would not expect, because generally in abusive families, there is this kind of generational repeating of abuse. And unfortunately, Milton, based on what the family members have told me, told the DA and everybody else, is somebody who's an abuser.
Oh, boy. All right. Well, Milton's not here to defend himself, so I'll assume that he denies this charge.
Which is why I said, I don't know anything about it other than what I have heard from the family members. The family members are uniformly behind the brothers, with the exception of this one, I hate to say crazy Uncle Milton, but with the exception of the one family member who just happens to find a lawyer who just happens to be endorsing Gascon's opponent. So, and by the way, if Gascon, as she says, knows he's going to lose, then why does he want the publicity of doing this? Why wouldn't he wait until after he loses?
To change the trajectory of the race, or I mean, who knows? I don't think much of Gascon, but it doesn't surprise me that he might be looking for publicity. It's possible. Doesn't mean it's the wrong result.
In his defense, what he mentioned yesterday, and we've seen it, and on the criminal defense side, if you do the kind of work that criminal defense lawyers do, you have to believe, in order to get up in the morning, that people have an ability to change or redeem themselves. And in Gascon's defense, he has, well before the Menendez brothers, for 3 years, has initiated resentencing for over 300 people, 28 of them convicted of murder. And out of all of those 300, only 4 have reoffended, and not for any kind of violent act, but for technical violations. That's an incredible.
Well, yeah, these are not two young men who had some, multiple murder spree. It's like clearly there was a, as I've said this before, somebody said it to me one time about this case, and I thought that was a good point. A parent murdered by his child has really received the ultimate F in parenting. Obviously something went very, very wrong in this household with both parents and both children.
Our mutual friend, Adam Carolla, who is at one point was my podcast partner. Adam is the one who I thought crystallized this the best. Adam's got teenagers, Natalia and Sonny, twins. And Adam would say to me for years before I represented the Menendez, he says, if Natalia goes into Sonny's room on a Friday and says, Sonny, let's go blow mom and dad's face off on Sunday, and Sonny says this Sunday or next Sunday, Adam's point was, I think I have failed as a parent, and I'm not really worried, right?
Yes, I know. All right, so in that 2020 retrospective, it's still available on podcast if you guys want to listen to it. It's good. It's only a couple weeks ago. They resurfaced Barbara Walters' interview with them, as I pointed out. Here's a bit of Lyle and Eric describing their relationship with their father, Jose, in this 1996 interview with Barbara. Stop 43.
Describe your relationship with your father.
Brutal. Painful. torturous. And yet I admired him because he was so strong, and he was everything that success was, that I was taught that success was. And I thought that he was the most powerful and brilliant person I had ever met.
I was his firstborn son. That was very important to him, and he was a very forceful and I think very brutal person. And my bond with him was, I thought, strong because we had been through so much together.
You know, it's confusing to some people to hear them say anything nice about him, Mark, right?
Yeah, and by the way, I don't know about you, but that to me is what resonates with they're not making this up, and it speaks volumes because can you imagine how the brain processes that kind of abuse and the kinds of cross currents that you have to go through? I mean, I've sat and listened to experts for hundreds, if not thousands of hours talk about how the brain copes with abuse and how the brain deals with these kinds of trauma and what the healing process is and things like that. To me,
well, I'll give you one other point in your favor on this. That letter that surfaced that you say you've dated to, you think 8 or 9 months before the murders. In it, this isn't Eric in great detail saying he comes in and he does the following things. This is what he does. This is the amount of time he's been doing it. It's caused me great strife and pain and upset. Like, that's to me how somebody who's just laying the foundation for a murder defense would sound. There'd be more in there. He sounds to me more like somebody who really did have this happening to him, who was embarrassed and ashamed about it, as all abuse victims are, unnecessarily, but it comes with the territory. They shouldn't be ashamed. They haven't done anything. But that's how the letter reads to me.
I couldn't agree more. And you've heard me, I think, say it before, and I forget who first penned it. Otherwise, I give them credit. If these were the Menendez sisters, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about getting them out of prison. They would have long since been.
But let me before we get too soft on them, because I've got to be the pro ho again for a second.
Be the pro. Yes, I know.
They did go on a spending spree after after they killed their parents. And that was one of the worst things they could possibly have done in terms of being found, guilty of murder or manslaughter, because the public was looking at it like, they're celebrating. And the prosecution's theory in part was they wanted the parents' money. They were worried Jose was going to change his will. If you are tired of the same old coffee from the big mega corporations pushing their woke agendas, listen up. It's time to take a stand and support a brand that truly embodies American values, Blackout Coffee. They stand with hardworking Americans who believe in family, faith, and freedom. They roast some of the most incredible coffee you will ever taste using only premium-grade beans, roasted and shipped to you within 48 hours. And for the cold brew fans, Blackout Coffee is excited to announce the launch of their 2 new ready-to-drink cold brew coffee latte options. Don't settle for less. Make the switch to Blackout Coffee. Head on over to blackoutcoffee.com/MK or use the code MK for 20% off your first order. Blackoutcoffee.com/MK. The code is MK. Join the movement. Taste the difference. Remember, with every sip, you are supporting a brand that stands for America. Be awake, not woke. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.